Hello and welcome to 9-inch Charge. I'm Dan, and today we're going to talk about unit coherency in Age of Sigmar 3. Unit coherency is something that seems to have plagued the Age of Sigmar rules writers for a little while now. It feels like back in AoS1 there were a lot of abilities where you had to be within range of a general or a totem, and then you'd snake your units back to be in range. Then, to try and reduce that, the wholly within ability was brought in to try and curtail that and make you group your units together. But in AoS2 we saw a lot more flexibility in movement and units being able to deep strike, and screening out board edges and objectives became even more significant, so we went back to snaking out units and creating conga lines. The new answer to this from the rules writers, and something that should create the feel of units working together in unison as a unit rather than strung out individuals on their own, is the new coherency rule, which reads as follows. Units must be set up and finished every move as a single coherent group. A unit with 2 to 5 models is coherent if each model in the unit is within 1 inch horizontally and 6 inches vertically of at least one other model in the unit. A unit with more than 5 models is coherent if each model in the unit is within 1 inches horizontally and 6 inches vertically of at least 2 other models in the unit. If a friendly unit is not coherent at the end of a turn or after you set it up, you must remove models in the unit from play one at a time until it is coherent. So let's have a look at what this means in practice for units on the tabletop. Units on 25mm bases will see the least amount of change. 25mm is less than an inch, so if they're all stood together in a line and their bases are touching, they will always be within an inch of 2 other models. However, if you want to space them out, this will leave the last model out of coherency, as it now won't be within 1 inch of 2 models, it will only be within 1 inch of one other model. To solve this, we can put a triangle of models on the flanks, and now the unit retains its coherency. However, if even one of these models is killed, we will have to remove models until the unit is back in coherency, which in this case will be down to 5 models, as when a unit is between 2 and 5 models in strength, they only have to be within 1 inch of one other model in the unit. A much safer formation would be to deploy your unit in 2 rows. However, this may not give you the reach that you need if you still need to use this unit as a screen. What you can do is insert models as breaks halfway through, so that when you start to take models off, you'll reach another triangle in the unit, and then you won't lose all your models down to 5 when you lose coherency the first time. Models with 32-inch mil bases, such as dryads, will act in much the same way. However, they will not be able to stand base to base in a line as the 25mm models are and still be within range of 2 other models from the unit. They will have to adopt a formation that looks something like this. This formation will allow them to retain their coherency and still be able to screen, although the reach will not be what you're used to. If you want to space them out, then again you'll have to put the triangles on the edges to make sure that they remain coherent. And as said previously, to be absolutely safe, you'll want to bunch them together and put them in ranks. Now this becomes an issue for models on 32mm bases, because if you have a 1 inch reach, you can reach over another model that has a 25mm base if you're in base-to-base contact with it. However, on a 32mm base, you will not be able to do this if your weapon range is 1 inch. This is going to deal a big blow to the amount of damage you'll be able to output for these kinds of units, as when you get into combat you won't just be able to wrap around like usual. There are a lot of battle line units in the game that will feel the effects of this. I'm thinking about Nomati Thralls and I'm thinking about Dryads, as I said previously. In response to this, I'd like to see Games Workshop either increase the amount of attacks that these models have on their profile, or increase the reach of their weapons to 2 inches. We'll have a look at cavalry, but I am going to say from the off that my recommendation is now that you take cavalry units in units of 5, and then you do not have to worry about all these rules anyway, and also it's always been a challenge to get more than 5 cavalry models into combat effectively anyway, so I don't think this will become too much of an issue. But if you really do want to run your cavalry in units of 10, this is how you can do it. This formation is coherent, however it is quite janky, and I think when you get into combat you will struggle, and it only works if your models do have a 2 inch range. This formation, I think, is a bit more effective. It does leave 2 models out, but you guarantee to get everything in your frontage in, and you don't have to worry about ranges, and your mounts, which inevitably will have a 1 inch range, will also be able to attack. Lastly, I want to look at unit coherency for the much larger units in the game, such as Kurnoth Hunters, Trolls, or big cavalry like Skull Crushers. Lots of these kinds of units like to be taken in units of 6, It's not uncommon to see 6 Kurnoth Hunters with scythes or 6 Skull Crushers from across the tabletop. If they're in units of 5 or less, obviously this new coherency rule doesn't matter, but if they are in units of 6 or more, I recommend taking the 3s in the triangles that we've seen previously. So you'll have, as you can see here, 2 triangles, each of 3 models, and that will be your 6. And you'll have a frontage of 4, and you'll have 2 at the back, which obviously they won't be able to get into combat unless they have a big old reach. Luckily, Colonel Hunters do already have this reach. As I said, I'd really like to see this replicated across the whole range, because at the moment, going from 5 models to 6 models, it feels like almost like there's a tax for taking the 6th model. What this new rule will lead to, however, is having units that look like units and function like units. In it together, watching the flanks. It will also reduce the size of units that I think we see on the tabletop. This isn't going to be a bad thing necessarily, because a multiple small unit playstyle will be beneficial in some circumstances, and the board size is going to be reduced, so there is going to be less space for these massive units with a big old footprint. There are some units that I see on the tabletop, even with the current size of the table, that are really unwieldy and difficult to move around. But please let me know in the comments what you think about these rules, what changes are going to impact you. For me, less screens is a good thing, but I play Living City, so I'm all about ambushing and coming on the side of the table. So, reducing someone's ability to screen me out is fine by me. And finally, if this video has been helpful to you, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.